Si vingués aquesta nit, no voldria ser com jo. Estaries espantat.
Hola, buenas tardes. Hello, good afternoon. Hola. First of all, thank you all for coming. Thank you for the amazing 8 people that are currently on the stream. Hello, future people that will be seeing this video in the future. We are in Elevator Sound Barcelona. We are in this, I was gonna say cold and windy day because of the joke, but it's a very old joke. We are in a very hot summer day. Again, all good? See? Thank you again for coming. We know that coming at 3:30 p.m. in Barcelona to an event, it's epic. Thank you again. Thank you. So we are here with Alex. Alex, also known as Mylar Melody. Hello, welcome.
Hi.
Maybe can we check if his microphone it's microphoning?
Hear me now. Yeah, good.
Okay, we have microphonic action. So again, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
And well, thank you very much for the opportunity to be presenting here Random8. For you that are not fully aware here, or maybe on the stream, or maybe the future viewers of YouTube, here we are presenting Random8. Random8, it's the first collaboration between Befaco and Mr. Melodies. Mr. Melody, it will be Mr. Melodies.
That is my name, yeah.
Or
Says that on my passport.
Mr. Thickstone.
Yeah.
So yeah, we are proud that the module is finally out, that everybody is loving it. Thank you for loving it already. Thank you for future love.
Yeah.
We are overwhelmed and stoked that something that we love so much and it took so much effort and time to develop, that you are loving it, which is a relief.
A relief, above all. It is, yeah.
It is. But anyway, we are very happy that the module ended up like this. Alex is gonna go through it, and I'm not gonna spoil any of the fun. I'm gonna be here. We're gonna be sharing some information for the stream people. I have that information, some pictures, some rarities, some curious stuff. Sorry. To show you, I will show you in this computer. We have some pictures for the development process, his ideas, his way, and hope that in this tiny desk you will be able to see. If not, please go back to the stream. It's gonna be at the Befaco channel, or most likely you're gonna be doing an edit, no?
Edit or something, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, if you don't see it clearly today, you will be able to see it later. So I don't know. Maybe I should leave you to it, or
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Hello. Thanks for coming, and thank you, Manu. Yeah, it's where to begin? Well, basically, what I'm going to do in this sort of session talky thing is I've not actually talked about the development of Random8 at all, like how we made it and some of the choices and the changes and the decisions, and I've not shown some of the pictures behind the scenes. There are alternate panels and stuff like this, so I'll show some of that. I'll talk about how we made it, and then what I'll do is I will kind of go through the module and I will put together just a simple little patch and sort of show our way of using it, a way I might like to use it. And then hopefully that's useful to you, because there's, with modular, there's so many ways to do this. I didn't think it would be that helpful to start with a really complicated patch. Plus, this is not my performance system, and it's like all Befaco modules, which is awesome. I don't own all these modules, so you're going to have to forgive me if I'm a bit slow getting stuff patched and working. But I think that's more useful. Let's see how we can patch this, see what we can use Random8 to do, and that's hopefully transferable. And so as to the history of the module, like how did this come about? Well, I am going to say that I'm going to admit that at the time I was not full-time doing YouTube, and so I was working for another company, and I think it is fair to admit that I was just kind of dicking around when I should have been working. And I was playing with VCV Rack. And for those, I'm sure you know, VCV Rack is a free modular synth environment. And there's this module called the teletype. And you can get a whole functioning version of the teletype, which will cost you £500, you know, but you can get one in VCV Rack for free. And so I was trying the teletype, and I was trying to get a sequence going. And I think at the time I was just like, I had rings probably into clouds. We have a picture of this, by the way. So can we get the picture of the VCV Rack patch? Can you see this? And so, yeah, I was basically playing around with teletype. And there was a moment where I was like, I just want to sort of modulate some other things in this patch. And so in VCV Rack, there's a thing called RND.
Maybe if you guys want to come
Yeah,
closer,
feel free to come closer. And also to see this.
Presentation, it's going to be around the patch, it's going to be splitting the patch, then you can see the image. We don't smell that funny.
Yet. We do smell a little bit. Just watch this camera. But yeah, you can see. So this is the teletype, and basically there's a thing called RND. And RND, you push the button, and it creates 6 random voltages. And there's also a module called 8vert, and that's 8 attenuverters in a little line. And so, of course, if you take the RND and you run it through the attenuverter, the 8vert, then you can, every time you push the button for RND, you get 6 random voltages. And then you can send them to a place. And for me, it's really valuable to have attenuators in the path. You know, because a lot of these modules have CV inputs, but they do not have attenuators on those CV inputs. And attenuators are hugely valuable because they allow us to have just a little bit of modulation. And so the original idea, I patched this together with 2 of the RNDs so that we had enough that I could patch 8 channels of the 8vert. And I literally had one of those Archimedes in the bath moments, you know, the proper like, eureka. I actually saw in my head a module, and I was like, whoa, you could have basically 8 channels or a bunch of channels, and then you'd have attenuverters, and it would just be, you'd strike it with a trigger, and then white noise would create the randomness, and you could choose how much or little you would send. And there's a drawing. If we go to the next picture, I have a book which was given to me by Tom Whitwell, which is the sort of music thing kind of notebook. Some of you might have that book, and it's really good. And it's got a way of drawing modules out. And so in about 10 minutes, I drew this page that you can perhaps see a little bit of. And if you see, the very first sketch was 6 channels. And it was like, it had inputs on the left, it had attenuverters in the middle, it had outputs on the right. It was called, I think I called it like randomer. And then I just looked at that and was like, well, there's all these gaps. We should plug these. So I was like, okay, well, what if it was 8 channel? Could you squeeze it in? And I just went straight to a thing that actually weirdly does resemble the module to a large extent. And I imagined that would just be a kind of dumb analog module. But the idea of it was this notion that you could move things a little bit, or you could move things a lot. And you may notice on the sketch that I was like, oh, I could have looping. If we had like an expander, maybe. I imagine that it could perhaps also have an input for each channel so that you could take sequences and then sample and hold them, and it might be useful in that way. And so I just was like, this is an idea. I think there's something here. And of course, my friend DivKid, who's also a modular maker, he's made modules. He, I know, has had really good experiences making stuff with Bifaco. And in my mind, it was just like, it would obviously be this company that I would approach with this idea. And so I think I sent you an email. I was like, I have an idea, Manu, do you want a meeting? And you're like, yeah, okay. And I remember that meeting with Manu and Diego. And yeah, I remember you calling yourself like, we are like the cool uncles. We're like cool uncles. We're here to enable, but we're also here to like keep you in check and to make the idea feasible and achievable and make sure we deliver it.
Also, being the cool uncles mean that you are the father.
Yes.
And if there is a fuck up, it's your fuck up.
Yeah.
I mean,
my fault.
It's
my fault.
If people do not like the model,
That's on you.
You know, that's the cool uncle's job, no? The cool uncle will buy sweets to the kid and will.
Yeah, we'll walk away and then.
And then when it's
So yeah, you were definitely the cool uncles. Basically, you were like, yeah, we should do this. And I remember Diego sent me an email quite quickly back because one of the key things was just like, is this physically feasible? Can you fit this much stuff in that smaller space? And if ever you've seen, there's that amazing DUTFA module. It's like eight VCAs or whatever in a tiny space. And so I was like, well, I think this could probably be done. And it was to my great surprise that Diego said, yeah, we can fit it. And there was also space for a button for every channel. And I think actually Diego did say, I'm sure I remember this, that he was like, it will actually be easier to do as a digital module. I think he said that, which is a bit sort of, I find that hilarious now because it's become a big challenge. And developing it as a digital module is a long process of testing and refinement. And what I'll talk about next is that, you know, because we sort of batted around some prototype ideas. Can you see here? Yeah, go back. There's one with a sort of a three. Oh, this one. So I went on Photoshop and I designed a little, I sort of cut and pasted and was like, it could look a bit like this just to get my head around it. And then if you skip ahead, there is one with a little, like, do you see it's got like a one LED? And basically Diego was like, you know, what if it had a LED? What, you know, would that be useful? Could you use that for something? And if you skip ahead one more, then you can see this one. So here we were considering what some people have asked me about actually is, you know, hey, well, why is it not bigger? And that is a very fair question. You know, why isn't it bigger? And you know, for me, my original sort of vision with this and why it's this size is because I want something that will fit in basically any case. I want you to be able to have a case that's this big or this big, and you still have enough room, because most modules have enough CV inputs that you can use these up pretty quick once you get, you know, into the fun of patching. And so I felt the right compromise for me was to make it small, and so it could fit in more cases. But we could have made it bigger, and it's a question. But then, and we also considered, could it have 6 channels and not 8 and get more finger space? But, you know, I've since talked to people who make products, and one of the things that I hear, I was watching this video from Hans Nordelius, you know, Hans from Nord, and he's like, well, one of the things is you've got to have the sort of conviction in your own ideas. You've got to, there's a point where you have to just be like, no, I know that this isn't going to please everyone for that reason, but this is what I think is the best way. And you kind of just got to make a decision. And I think that is probably the essence of all hardware, is just, you know, you make decisions. And I know that all my favorite stuff is quite, you know, things like the LA2A, it's got 2 knobs. And I love that it does not have 12 knobs, and that it is simple, and I can just, it's been, the decisions have been made for me. And so, long story short is I was sure that like it needed to be this size, and we had to make it small. And then the real question is just how it would work. Actually, it was funny, there was a comment when we announced this that someone said, well, it looks like you designed the physical interface first, and then you came up with a menu system for it. And that is what we did, you know, that is the way it worked. And I remember, and in fact, I'd forgotten this, that we talked so much about how it would work, and actually there might be, if you, once we decided on the physical form, this is like a page of notes as well, but skip ahead, is it that one? Maybe, yeah, I mean, you can see here. Basically, we had a bunch of meetings from the original idea, which was October 2023, and I remember we batted around ideas for how it would work and how the menus would work. And originally, I'd imagined that we would have shift functions. You would hold the bottom one, and then you would hold another thing, and that would be how you would change the menus. I remember that you would change one thing at a time, and you would not have the thing that you can quickly change multiples. And I also remember an idea that I had that seemed reasonable, which was that in order to change the amount of steps on a channel, then you would have to tap that button that many times. So if it was 32 steps, you would literally push it 32. And there was a point where I was like, that sounds fine. I'd be fine with that. You know, and what I've discovered is that I'd forgotten that Diego especially was to be, you know, was a really brilliant provocateur and springboard, and yeah, but that sounds a bit, you know, have you considered this? Have you considered this? And it was, this sort of picture of us is kind of, I'd looked at the Erica Synth's Pico Quant, which has these colors for the things, and I was like, yeah, it can work this way, and blah, 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 blah. Long story short is that we arrived at this idea after one of these meetings in 2025 where it would use all of the LEDs and it would kind of show you. And I just kind of sat there with my eyes closed and tried to picture myself using the module, and that you would turn these dials and then things would fill up. And I know that it would have quite fast feedback and it would feel, I was like, yeah, that could work. I think that could work, And so long story short is then, we get to a point where we had a physical prototype. And I don't know if there's where's the picture of, there's me holding. Okay, so this is an interesting one. Can anyone spot what is the difference between that prototype and the final module? Answers on a postcard. There's a really big difference. So in that picture, the outs are in the middle and the triggers are on the left. But in the final module, it's the other way around. And I remember that was the first prototype. I remember going to Super Booth and I remember getting it out of the packet, Diego giving it to me and like laughing because it was just so amazing that the thing was real. I was like delightful. But yeah, with that was born out of the fact that on paper you think, well, ins on the left, outs on the right, right? But I'd come to realize that the way it was going to work was that I would want it on the right side of the case and for it to basically to make the best use of the ergonomics of the pots. I reasoned that you're going to have more of the outs connected than the ins. And so if we did it that way, then it will make the best use of this decision that we made, and things will flow away from the module and not get in your way as much, and which I think has proved to be the case.
This is one of the moments where the cool uncles said, okay, you want to do it like this? This is your thing. You are the father. We disagree.
Yeah.
But if you want to do this, it's your
this.
thing. And he was like, yes, this is what I want to do. This is the logic behind it.
Yeah.
And we said like, okay, it's your model. Okay. And truth to be told, now that you see it, it does actually make sense. There's like this little thing of the feng shui, like sting, like a sting on your side. But when you use the model, it actually makes sense.
I think we were talking about it on the way over, that it's really important to have people that ask you to explain your decision and to say, why have you done that? Not to be annoying, I'm not trying to like make fun of you, I'm not trying to say your ideas are bad, but just explain why that. And that's hugely helpful because then you actually go, okay, well, I think because of this and this and this, and now that I've said that out loud to you, that still feels reasonable to me. And these are the sort of small things that I think are really important. And another crazy thing to say about the development of this whole module is when we had a meeting yesterday, that was the first time that all the people or some of the people who made the module, including myself, were in the same room together. Because what we did not do is, I did not fly to Barcelona when we first came up with the module idea. And I think in retrospect, that would have been a good idea. Just to be in the same room and to just hash out some things and to communicate. Because
but it's nice to see that 21st century and technology enable us to make beautiful things even with an ocean in the middle.
It totally does. And that is absolutely nuts. We can be separated by oceans, but we can still make something together and we can still agree and disagree, and we're big long calls and stuff. So it's great. But I definitely think I would, I was talking to the guy from Genki Instruments, and he was saying they have a thing where they fly all the programmers over and they literally all stay up until 4 o'clock in the morning over 2 nights, and they just power through a load of things. And I think there's something to be said for being in the same room. So long story short is then we were doing bug testing, beta testing. I was trying to like try everything out. And there were a bunch of things that changed at the last minute. Like, for example, some of the menus, the way that it worked is when you turn these, they fill up from the bottom, but some of them used to fill up from the top down. And I realized because things like probability, when you change the probability, I wanted a high amount to be a high probability, and I wanted a low amount to be a low probability. And things like so basically it fills from bottom to top, from empty to full. And things like offset was another one, where offset was raising voltages. Previously it used to come down, So you would turn the thing and it would go from top to bottom. So it was raising voltages by the LEDs going down. It just didn't make sense. And I remember saying to Manu, like, we need to change it all so it's bottom to top and just kind of make it consistent. And yeah, you just kind of work things out. I think there's the key was to actually have a physical thing. It's easy to have ideas on paper, but it's so different when you have the thing in your hand. And I know that some people have asked me for advice when they're developing modules and things, and they're like, hey, what if it worked like this, or what do you think? And I'll have to say to a lot of them, you know, I can't tell you until I actually have the thing in my hand, because there's so much of just, you just can't sort of tell, if that makes sense. And we had a lot of refinements of things like the slide times. Like, for example, slide is actually a really kind of complicated curve that's in this thing, because I wanted slide to go from very short to take the clicks out of voltage changes to medium for slide, then to longer, and to, I wanted like minutes long slide, which it doesn't actually do. We're talking about making it do that in a future firmware update. But all of those things had to be worked out by hand. The hardest thing for me was also deciding on the final styles as well. We had many more styles that we were testing than ended up in the final module. And it was really, really challenging to see the differences. And in the end, I had to do like I had to record the output of every style and do like a statistical analysis and see which ones were the most different and most complementary, and listen to my own listening test and to beta test of feedback, and try and just sort of put all this together to say, you know, they really like this for that, I like this for that, this is the most different to that, and I've tried my best to come up with the most complementary set. And with it in my mind that there is a possibility that we could add more styles in future. And so, yeah, it was announced on June the 15th of released on June the 15th of 2026, and it was, yeah, I wrote this down, it's like 963 days in development. There is a VCV rack version of this module made by Ewan Hemingway, and that, to me, is like the ultimate sort of, you know, full circle. There's the fact that this came from VCV rack, and this has now returned to VCV rack. And I think that's really nice, and as it should be. And just to be clear, the VCV rack version is free, so you can have a free version of this module I'm about to show you. So please try the VCV rack. And one thing to say about the VCV rack, which was Ewan's suggestion, which is amazing, is that you can MIDI map individual controls in the VCV rack version. So you could go, for example, into the, I don't know, like the divider menu, and map the divider controls for the different channels to different knobs on your MIDI controller. And that way you could make a kind of sort of Random8 sort of super channel where you have all the controls of all of the individual parts and kind of jam them in real time, which you can sort of do that on the module because you can go into that menu and wiggle the little dials. But with the VCV rack version, you get this option of doing that on a dedicated controller, which is very cool. So it's a different thing. And yeah, as Manu said, the main thing that you feel is relief, that people are like, yeah, that the reaction is really good and people seem to be really enjoying it. That is hugely relieving, because after like nearly 3 years, you're not 100% sure anymore, you know, and I'm too close to this to be objective. But I was confident that people would like this because I was so cognizant of why I wanted this, because I want this to animate things and make things sound more alive. For me, I'm trying to do live improvisation when I perform. So, and one of the things that I really value is where I only have to do a small thing, but get a big difference. And so, you know, where I can just push one button and something happens, or just turn a dial and something very big happens, then that for me that's a useful thing. And I've used Turing machines, the Tom Whitwell module, for many years, and love them, and always wished I could have more. And, you know, in a way, this is a kind of a version of that. This is a kind of expansion of that idea as well. And I'm really grateful to things like that for showing me the value of looping. And hopefully it's useful to other people. And I was saying before, to my great surprise, I saw there's this new video for King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, the excellent band. And in the video is a Random8. And the video was like, Random8 came out less than a month ago. Like, how have you done this? I spoke to the band, and They're like, yeah, we filmed it really recently and we're all modular heads. And, you know, I just, to me, that's just nuts, is seeing that the people have these and they're enjoying them. So yes, any questions at this stage about any questions about the development, or I can then start patching and explaining? Anyone?
No questions?
No question.
Come on.
No question. All right. Well,
I just want to know.
yeah, go on.
The name, the Random8.
Yeah. Where does the name come?
In the process, where they come.
Well, it was right. Do you remember that drawing? It was there on the top of, on the second drawing. You know, on the drawing above the module, I wrote Random8. And I don't know, yeah, that was literally, it was about 10, 15 minutes to draw that whole page.
I also get that the mate,
Mate.
the M8 mate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's like, because I say mate, and I'm like, mate, I used to live in London, and so I'm quite used to saying I really like that.
So it have to be 8.
Yeah, because
it can
I'm,
be 6, like
I think because well, I do like,
The joke is on you.
yeah, I was like, it was called Randomer, and then I was like, it's got to be 8 channels, so it's like, and I just probably literally went random, and then 8 channels, Random8, oh yeah, like, perfect, okay, Random8, and I never changed my mind, I was like, perfect. So that bit was easy, but definitely the rest of it was challenging. And so, and I should also say that we are planning to we're planning to add to this module and improve it. And I was going to mention a couple of the sort of sectors and things, but I mean, I think maybe we should move on. But anyone have any ideas for styles, anything that you would like to see in Random8? Does anyone own one of these in this room? I don't know if there's any feedback from the floor, any ideas? Just answers on a postcard, but you can always email.
This is the moment to dream.
Yeah,
dream live.
Oh no, yeah. Like,
No dreamers in the room?
Basically, I mean, oh, go on.
So you think it could be reversible, so you could put it on the left side?
Yeah,
with the
well,
firmware?
yes, yeah, you could. Actually, on ModWiggler, on the ModWiggler thread I created for Random8, one of the things is I asked Diego to send me the files. So I've put the, like, I can't remember what the name of it, but basically the file to create a PCB panel that is this, with the correct cutouts, is there.
But
So
then what we should do,
you can then make one.
it's to make a software option in order to
To,
flip
like,
it.
physically invert
Because
it.
if we physically flip it, you are gonna get things from top to bottom.
Yeah, you will have that top to bottom.
Yeah,
and then
the
rather than
thing is maybe on. No, the thing is
and the
that
pots will always
I-
be it will be a Neve
So you-
style, and they'll be sort of inverted. But that will be. I think personally, I think you can just invert it and kind of learn the inverted version. There is actually somewhere there is a picture I found of a panel where we had the steps and all of the words right way down, like upside down and right way up at the same time. But it became very visually busy. But yeah, you can just put it on the left. Try it upside down and see if you can, like, you should be able to learn it. It's just the same, really. It's just whether you can more easily read the labels. But I'm in my 40s now, and I'm starting to find it hard to read stuff. So I kind of have to just learn by feel anyway.
mate, you cannot imagine. So I already forgot about the fact that we gave you the files for the reversed from panel. I mean, you cannot imagine the amount of little thingies and details, and I completely forgot about that.
Yeah, we did.
So definitely.
The point is, if you were game, if you're up for it, you know, the files are there, so you can make your own panels and you can do an inverted one.
But this is a note for our future selves.
Yeah.
You know, like reverse mode.
I think, like, I did want to mention one of the sort of key things that I would like to do, a number of people have asked, is can we have it so we can limit the output voltage on a per channel basis? And I think that's definitely something we want to try and do. It's hard to, I don't want to promise anything because it's just that, you know, I'm a big believer you shouldn't promise something until it's there. But just to let you know, that is, I fully agree that it would be nice to have the option to limit it, because at the moment the output of the channel is up to 10 volts. We chose that value, by the way, because that really covers most of analog electronics. There are most things, very few things that are like 12 volts. And we also chose 0 to 10 volts, not unipolar, unipolar but not bipolar. That was because then it could better drive oscillators and be used as a pitch source. And if we made it create negative and positive, then that's tricky. It would not be as easy. So I remember Diego asking me to decide whether it was going to be an attenuverting or a positive only at the last super booth. And I was like, we should just go with 0 to 10. To me, that makes the most sense. So, yeah. But we've got a bunch of, there's lots of ideas and obviously new styles and things that we're thinking about. But anyhow, should we patch?
Maybe.
Mano looks like he's
Anything
about to say
else from in the
any
room?
questions at this stage?
No dreamers.
No dreamers.
Okay, okay.
That's all right. But yeah, by the way, if you have ideas, just you can email me. I'm quite accessible.
Yeah.
Bifaco are accessible.
Yeah,
Like,
so
do send your idea. Like, really,
Yeah.
I'm not going to be like, that's a terrible
So
idea.
beware that
you
at
know.
some point we will release the code.
Yeah.
And once we release the code, when people dream, it's kind of, okay, the code is there, do it yourself.
So it will be open.
So this is the moment not to receive back, okay, go ahead and do it yourself.
Because the plan is to open source the code,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You heard it here. I mean, that will mean that people, can
the
code
plan-
things for it.
Again, what you say, no, it's not promising anything, just dreaming or just verbalizing our intentions. No, we are not going to promise a change of output voltage upgrade, but we want to.
Yeah.
Same
Definitely.
goes with the code. Our initial idea was to wait for the reign of bugs.
Yeah.
Because it was like our biggest concern. We were
Yeah.
we had this crunch of beta testing the month before releasing. It was brutal, and so now we want to make sure that it's bug free. Do a couple of additions, and then anyway, if someone here is a coder and wanna take a look, or someone on the watching the stream or watching this video in the future, we are always open for people to have like access to the repos privately. We have done this on the past before releasing. Some people might be, I don't know, if you are really willing to develop new styles, get in contact.
I think I should say that but you can just sit tight, and I really want to keep adding stuff to it without trying to break what it does. That and there's some really great suggestions from people, but I have to be careful. I don't want to change the core way it works and make it confusing. We did have a question from Turbo Tambourine, hello mate, who asked, can it be a gate sequencer? And I can confirm here that high on my list is a style that would allow for it to produce gates in a kind of probabilistic way in some way. And the way that it does that, I need to try and find a musically satisfying output result, because one of the things that I'm sort of learning as I get older and use modulars more is that you can be really clever in how you patch and do something like, I'm going to have 50 sequential switches that do this, and I push one button and a whole load of trains go in different directions. But when I perform, the thing that I'm most conscious of is, if I don't know why it's producing that sound, then it's really hard for me to change it. And so my patches have become simpler and simpler and simpler the more time has gone on. And so I would want to keep the module really simple. I would want to keep the way it works really simple. And so, right, let's patch something which will be simple. But what I'll do is I'll sort of just show what I might do with this. And I'll also talk about some tips and tricks.
Also, just a question, how are you people feeling? I mean, is it hot? Is it all right? Do you need some rest, some fresh air? Are you all right? I mean,
okay for the moment.
For someone that is not in Barcelona, I mean, it's whopping 30
It's
a lot
hot.
degrees out there.
It's
so
hot.
We
It's
have
hot.
air conditioning, but yeah. So we are good, no?
Okay.
You can take it. Good.
So basically, the thing is, Random8 doesn't make any voltage by itself. You have to feed it some kind of trigger. I wish I knew off the top of my head exactly what the status of the trigger is. I think it's a 1 volt trigger, but I think it will trigger with less than 1 volt. I seem to remember when I was first testing it, I remember sending a slowly increasing voltage. So I believe it's less than 1 volt. But you've got to send it something to make a trigger. And so at the moment, I've got the ARC here, which is this posh upcoming module from Bifaco that will produce triggers. And this is basically what I would look to do. I will create triggers that fire my voice, and by which I mean that will open a VCA or use a envelope to open a VCA and make my voice be heard. And I'll use that same trigger and I'll copy it to the Random8 so that every time my voice is triggered, then so is the Random8. And then I can use those Random8 voltages that it makes and feed them into the voice. And this means for every strike of the voice, I get 8 voltages out of a Random8. But the key thing to say with the way that the Random8 works is you can break the voltages into groups. So if I put a voltage, a trigger in the top, then it will trigger all 8 channels. I might just create a new project here. So I have a 16-step sequence here, and if I feed the output into the Random8 and give it some triggers, then every time it triggers, I get this like fantastic Christmas tree of lights, which lets me know that I've spent my money well, because you know that the module that gives you the most amount of lights is the one that's most worth spending money on. More lights, the better, if you ask me. And so what I would then do is copy that so that the same trigger that's producing the voltages that trigger Random8 will also trigger my envelope. And so now this same signal is going to 2 places. It triggers the envelope and it triggers the Random8. And then I would take a oscillator, and I've got the Pony VCO here. I'll go into the input of the Pony, and I will turn it up so that signal is going into the filter. And I will take the output of the filter, which has its own VCA, which I could use, but I think we'll go through a stereo strip. Shout out to DivKid and the great stereo strip, because we'll use that as a VCA. And then I will go out of that, and then we'll just, for the sake of hearing this, we'll go straight into the input of our mixer. And so my mixer at the top here then goes out to the speakers. I turn this up. It's likely not to be making sound, because usually that's the way it is with modulars. They don't make sound for a while, and then you spend a while pulling your hair out, but I've run out of hair, so that's bad for me. So, okay, we go, let's trace this backwards. We've got to turn this up, and maybe the pitch is very low here. We turn up the inputs. Input 1 is this doing its, this has got its weird VCA active. And, oh, was it that? Bear with me, please. So we go out. This is just the way of it. Go out from here into the filter, out from the filter, into the stereo strip, out from the stereo strip, into here. So this is basically the way, is trace the signal flow, and sometimes it's helpful just to do this. Wow, that's just not making any sound. Let's do this. There we go, great test. So let's go out from the filter directly into there. That was it. I had the switch in the wrong location, because there is a VCA built into the filter. Welcome to modular, folks. And then we go out from the stereo strip, and let's try and do what we were doing before. So we go through the stereo strip, then there's one of them there as well, because this has a mute. There we go. So we've just got a filtered oscillator sound. Great, happy days. And then I want to trigger it, so I need to then take the output of my envelope. This is pretty much modular 101 here. Out of the envelope into the CV input. And I should probably also split that and send it into the VCA too. Level CV here. That's right. No, yeah. So we've got these triggers. Very simple. And so the idea is you then run the Random8 into it to make it sound less boring, right? So we go output of the Random8 into the CV input of the filter, and then turn down the CV input here. There we go. And turn that up. Turn this down. I might actually just take the envelope out so it's really obvious for a second. should say with the Random8, by the way, to start it, is to reset it. You reset it in a couple of different ways. But the main thing would be to reset the whole module. You push the top and bottom buttons down for 5 seconds. And so this resets all of the 8 channels. And if I let go, we should have a different set of what's going on here. We're actually getting our triggers in there. Mm-hmm. Wonderful. I think there could be a bug on there. Oh no, what? You're kidding me. That's the heat, ladies and gentlemen. Is that a bug on there? Wow.
It's not a line, it's a feature.
It's a feature, I think, is the answer. That's weird. Yeah. Wow. Wow. I am literally going to turn that off and on again. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the challenges of doing live synthesizer demonstrations. But yeah, let's do that again. So we send our triggers, track select here, and then we go out here, and then are we getting our triggers from here? Track select 1. Oh yeah. Ah yes. Ah yes. Ah yes. I think so. One of the things to say about Random8 is it doesn't save all the time. So if you power cycle your system, as we just did, a really important thing to bear in mind is, yeah, it doesn't save all the time, and we did this in order to save CPU cycles, because the module is super busy. So you have to remember to save your patch before you turn it on and off. And so the way to do that is to go into the preset menu by holding down this button for 1 second. And by going into the preset menu, then you save the state of the module. And then as we just did, if we power cycle the module and turn it back on, then it should be where it was. What just happened there was this was saved with all the attenuators turned down. So when I turned it on, I had to interact with the attenuators to actually make them work correctly. So long story short is remember to save before you power cycle. We did this to save CPU cycles. There are 8 locations that you can save into, that one temporary one that I'm using, and 7 that you can save and recall later. So if you had a certain patch and you had different kind of parts to your performance that you wanted to use, then you could recall those later as part of the performance, basically. So anyway, what we've done is we've restarted and we've reset this. So the module should just be making random voltages. Thank you for bearing with me, by the way. This is just creating a sort of long, a modular patch. Even a simple one takes the time. And again, this is not my system. So I would, my system is all pre-patched. I don't do that thing of patching live on stage. I think people who do that are amazing. That's a different discipline. So it's a bit slow. But I wanted to do it this way because then we understand. So we create a little thing. And then I think let's just do the really obvious thing. Let's just go straight into the pitch. And what we heard there, is suddenly we're not hearing it, we are hearing it. And a really important thing to bear in mind is the Random8 is producing up to 10 volts. And if you think about how voltage works with oscillators, oscillators need 1 volt for every octave that they play through. And that literally does mean that a Random8 can make 10 octaves of pitch. So we can suddenly make the oscillator jump into dog territory. So the dogs are jamming, but we can't hear a thing. And so it's really important to turn this down. And it literally does mean if you turn the little dials halfway, then you get 5 volts. And I think this is why it would be nice for us to limit the output voltage. So if, for example, you wanted something to just live within a certain range, then that channel would always be restricted. I find to create musically satisfying pitch information with Random8, you're going to want to turn this down so it's only moving through 1 or 2 octaves, so that just as a pianist or someone playing the bass might stick to an octave, it's going to sound more musically satisfying if we do it that way. And so we can hear that there's these different random. There we go. So every step, it creates a random voltage. And the trick with Random8 is that it loops those random voltages. So if we push the button, it will last 8 steps. Well, it might be 16 actually that it's defaulted to. I should know off the top of my head. The default patch I think is 16 step now I say that. And I think we chose that because I'm a bit of a sucker for 8-step sequences, but I'm trying to make things more interesting. The key is that we would push the button to loop it, and if we push the button again it pulses and the sequence will change slowly over time. And I wanted that so that you could just keep things kind of in a groove but changing slowly. And so this pitch sequence will change over time. You push it again, it will lock that pitch sequence and not move anymore. And if you push it again, it will evolve. And if we double tap it, then it will become random again. And so I might want to create a really simple riff. So this 16-step thing is, it's kind of a longer passage. To change the length, I hold the bottom button for 1 second to change the step length. And then I can turn this down until there are 4 red lights lit. And that's 4 steps. Nice. And then what we would do is we could take another channel and let's adjust that cutoff for us. And when you then have this thing where the destination has its own attenuator and there is an attenuator on the Random8, and we also, there's this thing of discussing how to best set up a Random8 to modulate something. And the thing to know is because Random8 is only making positive voltages, a module is all about sweet spots. And so a filter will sound good if it's moved through a certain amount of range. It sounds good through this range. And the way to work with a module like Random8 that is unipolar is to set the cutoff to the lowest part that you think sounds good. And then you ask Random8 to add to that voltage, to sort of invisibly turn the knob for you a little bit. And the thing is that kind of doing that might require that you know how much voltage your filter is expecting. You might look in the manual, it's worth knowing this stuff, so you're like, that filter needs 5 volts. So you know that you never need to turn up a Random8 more than halfway to get the filter to move through its full range. It can be really valuable to know that information because the key to making it satisfying is keeping it within that sweet spot range. But really you can just turn a Random8 channel all the way down, turn the CV input all the way up, and then turn up the Random8 until something good is happening with the cutoff set at the lowest point. So always set your knob to the lowest point you want to hear, if that makes sense, and then use Random8 to add to it. If we had made it an attenuating module, you would have to set it to the middle of where you want and adjust the attenuation to go positively and negatively. I think that's harder for me to understand. I'm not clever enough to understand that. So we can create a little one of the other things that I really, really like to modulate in a patch is release time. I think that's one of the key things. In my head, I was thinking about cutoff values that change, I was thinking about volume that changes, and I was thinking about things like release time. Because if you listen to like Aphex Twin records, as I am known to do, then you hear how he modulates the timing of passages, and he's designing that all by hand. I don't think he's using random modules to do it, but you can kind of get to that same sort of place if you use this and you loop that sequence. So I'll take another channel and I'll feed it into the CV input for the release time. We get this really lovely thing where it's just like me manually changing the release time, but it's doing it for me. Then I find what I'm trying to do in a performance patch is work out what I'm happy to let the module do, and then I tend to grab the controls to offset and sort of co-collaborate with the random voltages. You know, you don't want it to necessarily do everything for you, because what is there for you to do? You're trying to just give it just enough to keep things interesting, and then let you sort of do the rest, if that makes sense. I've still got range that I could kind of turn the cutoff down and make it more muffled, and it's still moving that control. So I can still sort of jam the cutoff, but I might like to leave it in that same sort of position as I had it before when I'm finished jamming with it. But that's the idea. You set up, let it control things and feel that out and just listen to it. Like, oh, what sounds good? That sounds good. And then just, I'm thinking like, what am I getting tired of? What's getting boring? And well, I guess like the main thing is, I don't know if we set a scale, and I should mention how we do that. So you hold down the scale button, and this top channel is controlling the volts per octave. And so I would grab this top knob, and I might like to go, I think this is major pentatonic. I think that's right. It's very hot in this room, so my brain is starting to melt slightly. I think we need some effects. Always makes things better, right? So what I'll do is I'll go out, we'll go into the Iroi, and then I will patch the out of the Iroi in stereo, and then I will go back out from that into the Iroi, and we should get some lovely reverb and delays. So. There's a timbre control on here as well, and we could start to modulate that. If I have a long enough cable. Let's try one of these. Let's go into timbre. And I don't know what the range is of the CV input range for the timbre control of that. Just turn up the volume a little bit. But I think like there are certain things that I like LFOs for, and there's certain things I like step voltages for. And I definitely think that modulating timbre controls is a kind of an LFO thing, wouldn't you say? It's nice to step it, it's nice, but obviously PWM is so much about movement. And we have slide built into Random8. And so what I do is I go into this second up menu, and now I can adjust slide on a per channel basis. And if I do it to the pitch, you get this lovely slide between notes. You can use it to take the clicks out of things. When I say that, that's really important for where you use Random8 to control a VCA. What I do not have at the moment is Random8 controlling the voltage of something, but if you have hard stepped information that's controlling the volume information, then you can create hard steps in your signal which can sound like clicks. And so if you hear that and you have Random8 controlling your volume, then you can use just a small amount of slide to take those clicks out. It will be hard to hear here, but that's what it's for. And then the other thing is we might like to use slide on this channel to sort of slide the timbre. We've got short notes, so you're not really hearing. But I like the fact that you can then have a small step count and create like little sort of wiggly LFOs. So if I loop this, then you can have a, the information that's controlling the timbre would be quite a short loop. And then with a sort of wiggle in it, it's like an LFO. But what you may need to do is to try and capture a more sort of lively loop. That is to say, one that's got a bigger difference in low to high. And that's tricky where the module has to decide for you because you're kind of waiting for it to do something and then you're looping. And so it's worth mentioning here there are different styles in Random 8. So a style is what we call the sort of algorithm, the thing that is actually choosing what the steps are. And I might come into the style menu here, and then if I turn this up, we get this little rainbow. And to just briefly mention what the styles are like, there's the bottom 5 are kind of sort of mathematically derived distributions of randomness, where each step will be quite different to the last one, but they're all in different locations. Some of them are a bit mid, some of them are a bit low, some of them are in both, and things like this white one here are equally distributed. So you're more likely to get something up high as you are something down low. And as for what they're best at, there is some mention in the manual of this, but I don't want to lead anyone except to say that it's a case of like listening and trying them out. But I would mention here this blue one is high and low. So high and low will create big differences where one step will be in the top half of the voltage range and the next step will be in the bottom half. Top, bottom, top, bottom, top, bottom, one after the other. And so it's fundamentally different to the other ones. And if I come here and choose it, then if we turn this up, we should hear our timbre getting moved up and down in a really kind of quite vigorous way. And if we increase the slide, then high and low I find is really good for making big sort of kind of sine wavy, triangle-y sort of sweeps from high to low. And it can become a lot more obvious than some of the other styles where you would need to loop for a while and then grab something. In any case, we can then just grab a knob that's creating the pitch information. And all of the attenuators are before the quantizer. That means that you can squiggle this, and it sort of has this like jiggly, steppy sound. And you can kind of play that if you're into that. But it means that you can never make a wrong note. I should mention that to tune the root note of your sequence would involve you grabbing the frequency dial and tuning that to the root note that you want for your sequence. There isn't a way to set root note in the module, that's something that some people have asked about. I don't know if there can be. It would be a tricky thing to design in. So at the moment, I would say like the thing to say is to set the oscillator is to basically turn the Random 8 down fully like this. So the attenuator is low, and then that's your root note. And by the way, if you wanted to tune multiple oscillators to the same root note, then this would be the mode to have it. You turn them both down and you tune both of your oscillators to be the same as each other. Then once you turn up the dials on Random 8, then they will play melodies together and you set the channels to the same scale. And this means that we can have like 8 different pitch sequences, and they should all be in the same key and they should all sound harmonious. Just set up one simple melody. I've like downsized the size of my live case so it is just one channel of pitch information, which is I don't know, I was like responding to the fact that a lot of the techno that I love was all just a 909 and a 303, and you don't need much to have a party, even though it is totally possible to have multi-channel stuff in this. So then if we trigger, let's get this. We have a kick drum. And we might like to then give ourselves like the cutoff knob to play with. We could play with the effects. Having designed some timbral modulation, thank you mate, with the Random 8. This is just dead simple, it's just about as much as there is time to set up here. way that I envisaged that people would use this module is you'd be doing something a bit like this, and then you might mute this, mute the kick, and then you're kind of almost queuing up something to happen, and that's when you would then be playing the cut-off by hand, and you would push this button. What I did just then is I pushed the button to put it into evolve mode in this breakdown. And I was kind of just like, give me the next idea. And the whole point of evolve is to use it in this way. So you like, I'm ready for a change, but I don't want it to lose what was good about what we were just hearing. You know, I'm looking for that slight evolution of the idea, which is that. And then I might just unmute the kick. Playing with the octave dials, always a good time. Always like doing it. And then you could shorten, lengthen the decay time yourself while this is still modulating that for you. And then I might like to mute this again. Move it up an octave. And I might turn down the timbral modulation a little bit. And then I might push evolve again. Ooh. Oh yeah. And then we're just waiting for the moment to bring in the kick again. 3, 2, 1, go. And it's obviously just one thing. This is super simple, obviously, but it's that. Of course, if you want a more strong change on your breakdown, then you remember you can double tap, and that's just going to instantly create a new sequence. It will start sort of, the next step you hear will be different to the last one. So I'll turn down the effects so we can hear it a bit more clearly. And if I double tap, ooh, like that, now it's just completely random again. And if you push it again, then you should have a different sequence. And I do believe that if it is triggered, then you get a completely new sequence if you lock it. I need to probably check that. That is how I imagined. I thought it works, because the key thing to say about how the loop is grabbed is it is always the last 32 steps that are grabbed. And actually, interestingly, even if you have the steps to like 1, which will just sound like nothing, it will sound like the same thing being repeated. If I unlock this, and if I grab this, and we just hear, we can use this to basically create sustains, for example, with a step count of 1. But if I then increase this to like 16 steps, then there is information there. So just to say that if you jam the step length, you don't lose anything in the sequence. It is always preserving the last 32 steps that are in there. And I was going to mention just some sort of tips and tricks. There's a couple of like slightly more advanced things. I realize it's very simple, but just to show you kind of, that's the sort of rough idea of how I imagined it being used. But one thing to note with regard to the styles is the fact that the styles, most of them, remember we were looking at the, where are we here? So these first 5, I said that they're kind of mathy, and they have different, they jump around basically. And the key thing with them is that they will tend to not, well, it'll be very unlikely that you'll get 2 of the same voltage on an adjacent step. One step will be somewhere, the next step will always be somewhere probably different, quite different, depending on the style. And what you don't get with that is that sort of musically satisfying Detroit thing of having repeating notes, which is very intrinsic to dance music. And a lot of sequences that I love, they work that way. So like, for example, the IntelliGel Metropolis and the M185 from RYK before it, that's intrinsic to that sequencer, and it adds so much funk. And so how do we do that with this? And there are actually two different ways, plus there is also a patch. And I could try and set it up here, although we've been going for an hour, so we'll see how we go. But the idea is that you use probability or divider. And what probability is the probability that you'll get a different note. And if I get a little secret. Let's just get a little bicky secret. And then we'll have a low step count, just so we can really hear this phrase. So that's 4 steps now. So if we want some of these funky Detroit repetitions, you could go to divider, and if you turn that up, now it will take 2 steps to change the voltage. So it's like you get 2-step repeats. 3 steps, all the way up to 8. So, and I find that useful for various reasons, one of which is that if you do compound sequencing with this, that's where you take the pitch information from 2 channels of Random8 and you add it together, and then you send that into the 1 volt per octave input of an oscillator. Then what that does is that means that the 2, one is jiggling up and down, the other is jiggling up and down, and the 2 jiggles add together and create a more complicated jiggling up and down. And if you have both of those be locked, if you have both of those fully random, then it'll just sort of sound like jiggles, just like one channel would sound like. But the moment that you loop both of them and you have a short amount of steps, then you start to get kind of phrasing where you have one be 3-step and the other be 5-step. And those 3 and 5s will play against each other polymetrically and you'll get an interesting phrase. But if you use divider and you increase the divisions to 8, then you'll get this thing where it will sort of shift up and down more slowly. And my favorite application of this is creating kind of octave shifts for every bar, every bar, and you get like melody progressions then. And there is in fact an octave scale built into this, which was DivKid's idea, where it constrains the pitch to octaves, so 1 volt steps. And so this means that if you add that with another channel, then you'll get acid-style octave shifting. And if you loop it, it's loopable and all of this stuff. And that takes a precision adder module. And I do believe Bafaka have these. I'm literally just on the spot here, like, whoa, what was the Bafaka one? But that's what I would use. You can find if you're using a mixer that to mix things together, then I'm right in thinking, I think off the top of my head, it would need to be a linear mixer in order to mix the CV output and still get a thing that is in scale afterwards, do you know what I mean? But you could also, if you wanted to use a quantizer, you can just to, if you don't have a precision adder, and that way you can then constrain what you create back. But that's a really fun way. It's way more complicated than there will be time to set up here. But I want to mention that compound sequencing thing because it's very fun. I also want to mention that having short step lengths of 3s and 5s, I find very musically satisfying. So I get these very recognizable little patterns when, if you have a 32-step sequence that's controlling, your sort of timbre of your oscillator, you're not going to hear that pattern so easily, I don't think. I should also mention that 32 steps was picked because, to me, it just felt like enough. It felt like that's sort of enough. I should mention that if you did want to have more than 32 step patterns, then you could use 2 channels and you could have a sequential switch and flip between one to the other, and use sequential switches are your friend then. And so, I was going to mention that there is a patch that I have worked out, which is the note repeat patch, which is in the manual. And the long story short is you use a VCA, and if you take the trigger that is triggering your channel and run it through a VCA and then use a Random8 channel to control that VCA, then what you're doing is you're creating a sort of trigger sequence that varies in height controlled by the Random8 channel. If you then use that height varied channel to trigger another channel on your Random8 and use that channel for pitch, then that channel will have note repeats baked into it. I think it's probably easier to say, check the manual, because we're all very hot in here. This is not the time to be sort of doing, but it's in the manual. I've been adding to the manual as we go, because the manual is a sort of ongoing process. So, do we have any questions? I can play a bit more of the, yeah, go on.
How is the randomness being achieved? Is it a noise wave that is like a sample and hold? And
Excellent question. I wish we had Vanta in the room. I don't know if we do. Vanta is the programmer who... Basically, the short answer is lots of different mathematical processes. And actually, it does say in the manual, like some of the mathy processes are like white noise is rand with brackets. That's, I believe, is quite a common way of creating randomness in sort of programming.
It's a well-known
like
algorithm
yeah.
from the typical C libraries.
Yeah, yeah. So it's that. The red is that I believe that the RP2040 has like a ring oscillator circuit. Is that correct? Is that right? Have I just made that up?
Maybe.
I've made that up. That's not factual.
I know that there are some RP2350 or RP2040 specific algorithm there.
So
basically, the answer is like there are different algorithms, like random algorithms. Maybe we can get conceptual. Random, it's never random, but you know what I mean.
It's various, yeah. And someone did ask, is your randomness truly random of me? And I don't think it is. And I'm sorry, or I'm glad I don't know. It's not. But they're all different.
Is
all
there
the
a question there on the
different,
back?
different in terms of like how they generate. And obviously that high and low one is like non-mathematical. It is just literally like me saying, this is how I want it. It should be this, then it should be that, then it should be this, then it should be that. But it's in the manual, it actually says what the math processes are. There's various ones. And we could do more, obviously. But I think, to be honest, the thing that I think I would like for the future styles is to be less mathematic and more kind of smart. I want ones that, how cool would it be if you'd had a style where it knew that it had played this note or this phrase 100 steps ago, and it returned to that phrase. To have some kind of sense memory, like a player would, like a real person would remember. Hey, well, like I'll repeat this phrase. I don't know quite. The details matter in terms of how it works, but that's the sort of thing that would be nice to have for me. Yeah. Go on.
So on that extent, can you then also produce noise waves or like noise out of it? Or
out of this? Yeah, that's a good question, and you should it is a question of like how fast can you trigger it. Paulie Bow asked me this, and that is a really good question.
I think that the short answer is around 1 to 2 Ks, between
It's
500 and 2 Ks maximum.
Yeah, I think it's pretty fast. I'm now looking for. I mean, we have the octaves VCO. What if I? You can get pretty fast. Let's go. Sorry, everyone. This is just very, very off the hoof. It sounds furry to me. Yeah. That fast. So you can make a bit of noise out of this, definitely. That's interesting.
Some sort of downsampling.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe.
No, the fact is that it's how fast the next value can be triggered. And considering that a white noise, it should be all the amplitudes happening super mega quick. Your limitation is to get into audio rate. And the answer is that the trigger capabilities of the module, it goes up to between 500 and 1K something Hertz. So if you are triggering a random value every, you get a 1 kilohertz or so speed of random values, if that makes sense.
Any other questions?
More questions?
So
done
yeah,
any kind of patching?
For
to trigger the
for
channels
the
with
video, asking here if it's possible some self-patching.
Yeah. That it should be. I mean, I'm literally now like, to what degree? The reason why the note patch, so this note patch that I mentioned requires that you use a trigger, run it through a VCA, and use the Random8 to control that VCA, because it creates a really clear and defined little spike that triggers it really reliably. And I found that you get kind of mixed results if you use it to trigger itself. But it can do that. I mean, we can try it here. The other thing is that could you use Random8 to trigger a drum module just as it is? You know, can it create gate triggers right here and now? And the answer is it can, but it's not as satisfying as you might hope, for the reason that, you know, a nice satisfying gate trigger would go high and then low very consistently. And obviously we do have this high and low mode, but I find that you need to trigger it very fast. It helps to have a separate sort of faster version of your triggers to trigger that. But you get a more reliable thing if you use this thing of running it through the VCA. I might just be making it more difficult for myself, and you should try this. And by the way, that's a really good use of the VCV rack version, is to sort of just try triggering stuff in different, try out ideas. That note repeat patch, I worked out in my head, then was like, to VCV, and then I tested it, and then to my great joy, obviously the same thing works in the hardware too. But yeah, it should trigger, but it's, well, yeah, we can try it here. It's, if we go out into in, then, but it may be, I mean, have I done this right? It then becomes a question of there. So we got a trigger, but only when the channel dipped to 0 volts and then came up above 1 volt. And so that's what I mean about it being sort of satisfying or not, because it's dependent on whether the thing itself is always dipping below 1 volt. And actually, even in the high and low mode, it doesn't always hit 0, because it's somewhere higher and it's somewhere lower, but it's not necessarily 0 volts. And so that's why I think we would be better served by making everyone a really good trigger style that just did that really satisfyingly, and with its own tricks like probability that would be controlled by the pot. And so, yeah, so it can kind of do it, but it depends on the channel hitting 0 volts, which you've got chance. It's chance based. So, any other questions? Well, after this, by the way, feel free to come up and ask me questions if you want to. You'd rather not be on.
Maybe take a little break and maybe then do more questions and maybe some more patching.
Yeah, I can play. I can make some melodies and stuff.
Maybe we take some fresh air, like 5 to 10 minutes fresh air, and then we do our last round of questions and some patching.
Yeah.
Because it's getting a little bit.
I'm pretty baked.
A little bit, you know
I'm
what I
pretty
mean.
baked. It's like the opposite of super boots. It's actually hot.
Yeah, exactly.
Super boots is
sometimes
freezing.
Yeah. So let's, for the people on the stream, we will be back in 5 to 10 minutes.
Yeah. I might set up the note repeat patch. Oh, it's hot. Thank you.
Thanks for the explanation.
Yeah, hopefully that's
I
helpful.
just got it yesterday, so
Oh,
I
thank
haven't
you.
had any chance to use it
Right.
yet.
Okay, well, thank you.
That's how I found out about today.
Yeah.
He told me.
Do you have any questions? Is there anything that I guess you'll see when you...
Fingereza que está mi
I have Steam Deck as well.
podría ser con yo
Really cool. Good. Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, it's like... Oh, great. Yeah, it was kind of slow, but it's very hard to not do it, do it either way. Because... No, I know, yeah, it's kind of... Yeah, I think that's probably why, isn't it? Yeah, thank you.
Tú estarás donde yo espero. Jolly justo no caían.
Yes, I have. Like,
steps to maintain order and ensure the committee is run in accordance with House rules and House Resolution 660. With that, I now recognize myself to give an opening statement in the impeachment inquiry into Donald J. Trump, the 45th President of the United States. The questions presented by this impeachment inquiry are whether President Trump sought to exploit that ally's vulnerability and invite Ukraine's interference in our elections. There are few actions as consequential as the impeachment of a president. While the founders did not intend that impeachment be employed for mere differences over policy, they also made impeachment a constitutional process that the Congress must utilize as necessary.
Gente, hola, buenas. Hola, vamos a volver. Okay, I'm gonna swap to English. So yeah, we are back on the stream. We are back with Alex. I think that now you're gonna be focusing more on sound.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can do whatever.
Yeah,
I mean,
anyway,
just play it.
Let's go back to where we left before, so you guys were close by. Maybe you can just harass him with questions, and maybe let's
Harass me.
let's do the sounds you people like
Oh, is it on?
him to do.
Okay,
Let's
great. Hello.
use it.
Hello.
So yeah.
So I set up, I talked before about this note repeat patch. So it's nice to have a little break. I can set that up and check it works, because, you know, there's always some finessing. And basically, I have set that up, I think. Pretty sure. If I turn this down, we get note repeats. Turn this up, there should be a threshold. Oh, but it's very... To be fair, I'm like probably showing my hex mix lack of knowledge here. But basically, the idea is that you run your trigger source through a VCA. So my trigger source is this. It goes into the VCA, and it comes out of the VCA, and it goes into the channel that is generating the pitch. And then I'm using the same source, although probably I should just be using like a 16th clock. So hot in here. But the short answer is you can then use a VCA to control the amount of triggers you're sending. You should then get note repeats if you turn this down. However, do I need to turn this all the way up? So you hear how every now and then the notes are repeating, because what's happening is that this channel is creating some random voltage, and sometimes it just means that the triggers are too low, they're less than 1 volt, so the top channel just doesn't advance. And again, this is in the manual. If you go in the manual and scroll down, there's a little bit that's in that I've highlighted yellow, and there's a couple of other little bits and bobs, but I've highlighted them yellow. These are like new things that I've added, just so you don't miss them. So the manual is not like a done thing, it's being changed all the time. And I've also done a VCV rack patch that you can download in that same bit of the manual, where I've wired this up, kind of like we've got here with like a Platts and some other stuff, you know? And then what you might like to do is loop the channel that is creating the note repeats. If you loop that, then you should get the same note repeat pattern. And if I loop this, if they were the same length or divisions of each other, so if this was 4, this was 4, then you get like note repeats that are, you get like the same thing repeating and repeating. But because we've got a decoupled thing where we don't have the thing that's creating our note repeats is separate to the thing that's creating our pitch information, then you can have the same, double tap this, you have the same pitch information and you have randomized note repeats with that pitch information. Or you can have the same note repeat information with randomized pitches. You know, I like decoupling things, you can do it like that. Or you can have this be 5-step and this one be 3. But with all of this, it's just about you accepting that the thing itself will come up with some pitch information, and it's about you dialing in the ranges so that things just sound musically satisfying to you. and that you don't make it so complicated that you can't remember how it's all wired up. One of the things that I like to do is I've got a little L-shaped bracket that came with one of my synth cases. You could literally, and what I've done is I've taped or tacked it to the side of my case so I can label the things that I've got Random8 controlling, because when you've got 8 channels of stuff, I find it really helpful if you're like learning your case. And eventually you stop looking at the labels, of course, but it is helpful to be like, oh yeah, that's that, that's that, and that's that, so you can then start to perform this more easily. Hard to hear for me, but it's as long as you can, hopefully you can hear. You could do really weird stuff. Obviously, we've only been controlling our voice. We should control the effects. We certainly can. You know, control the... fruitiness. Like to have slide on here, just to like slide the values.
Sliding the sort of the space-time values. Or try it on the echo and the density.
Yeah, that's quite cool. That top channel and just because I like the settings, right? Yeah, let's not mess with that. Let's let the melody change a bit, because that's the one thing that's been constant. Just wait until I drop the pitch. That's just simply controlling the decay, the echo channel of the array with the channel of this. Then we can double tap to randomize. And I might be like, yeah, we're a bit all over the place. Let's turn down the pitch. So remember, we've got 10 octaves of range. Let's make a bass line. I'm going to go to the step count. Maybe let's make it 8. And let's make this really regular. Let's add some. Do we still have this connected? We do not. So if we go. Actually, I know what we should try, which is, so if I go track select 2, do we hear our kick? I can't hear this loud. Is that, no, that's not playing a kick. Where is it? Channel 2. It might be muted. It was muted. So actually something that we could play around is just per call and noise plethora. I think definitely like the obviously a thing that's making like random voltages on a per step basis, percussion is going to be a really valuable thing. We saw before how release time of this melodic part was just a really valuable thing. And the same is true here, and I'm a big fan, not just because Manu's stood right there, but I'm a really big fan of per call. And so I actually use per call in my live system for pitch, for melodies, which is to say that I run oscillators into per call because it's like this module, it's like this big, which is what, is it 12 HP? Is it 16 HP? I would say. And we've got a ruler. It's that divided by 5.08 millimeters. And so it's big.
Per call, how many HPs?
Well, Diego as well. Anyway,
two guys or Befaco, not sure.
Yeah, none of you know. It's all right. It's you know, it's all,
okay, 12.
it's okay. It's not it's not a test, and it's really hard to know. But yeah, the point is that with per call, you put things like signal into it, and it has both a decay envelope and a VCA. So you can just put a noise into it, and then it goes like pew, and it lets you hear that noise for a split second. So it's really useful for creating percussion, but I find it really useful for creating pitch because it saves me having a separate envelope and VCA and a mixer as well. So it saves like 3 modules. And you can modulate the decay time with CV. And that's what this then becomes useful for. So you can use your Random8 to modulate the decay time of your thing. And so if I go from the out of this into a spare channel, so we go to in 3, and if I turn this up, so we've got the noise plethora, which is this digital noise source. It can make lots of weird, like, sort of weird noises. And if we send the weird noises into this and then strike them, then we should get interesting sounds. And then we want to use our Random8 to vary both the decay time and the noise source itself. And we could probably make multiple sounds on a per step basis so that we could have one channel sound a bit like a snare and then a bit like a hi-hat and jump between it. And we might like to use the high-low style to do that. So if I go out to triggers, so this is channel 3, I select channel 3 on here, and let's just get a bunch on, and we'll just let's hear it. Let's just check it's all working. So I am making sure that I'm doing it. Am I doing anything dumb on here? Can we turn this up a little bit in the room so we can get a bit more? My little farty snare. What is that thing? Oh no, my snare sounds like shit. And there are banks of these, right? Oh, that's the bank. How is it you've changed? This is showing my ignorance on the noise plethora. Yeah. Anyway, point is, so we've got a little like sound. Let's make that more interesting. We've got our kick as well, haven't we? And I think we turned it down. Why has that gone off? Why can I not hear that now? Oh, I pulled the cable out. Or did I? Why is that doing that? Oh, I paused this. For somehow, this is the joy of live patching, folks. The joy of live patching. And then I think that cable could be slightly, anyway, right. So then you go, very pedestrian, very boring. So then we need the same trigger. So I find it really valuable to have stacking cables. That's the other thing. If you're buying a Random8, you don't want me to tell you to buy more stuff, but stacking cables are really useful because you will want to copy the trigger that is creating the triggers, and you'll want to send it to both the Random8 and something else. So by plugging that same thing in, I now have created a group. I've got top 3 channels controlling my melody, which we're not really listening to, but it's there. And I've split it, and then this 4 channels can be used to control this. And this bottom one is still doing the note repeat thing. So we can use this one module and split it here. You can split it 8 ways, but I'm splitting it 3 and sort of I'm doing a bunch of different stuff, all from the same module. And then so we go from the out of 1, we go into the CV, and I turn this down until I'm like, what I might like to do is put this again at the lowest value that I'm happy to have it at, and then turn up the Random8. So that's the way we do it. We put the setting at the lowest value. So maybe you do just want it to be like really low and clicky. And then I'm turning this up, and I'm noticing kind of where it lands. I think that's still got slide on it because we were messing with that channel before. So this is how we reset a channel, by the way. We hold it down, one channel by itself for 5 seconds until it goes wink, wink, wink. And then when you let go, now just that one channel has been reset. And it's much easier doing that than like going in and being like, oh, why is this doing this? And just hold it down for 5 seconds, sort of smother it with your finger, and the channel will die, and then it will come back to life doing something. So, right, and then we go. Or you can do the offbeat hi-hat. And I'm just trying to find a good range. It's kind of there, isn't it? I'm just listening, like, is that a nice range? Of course, again, as I said before, it's helpful to know, hey, maybe the per call needs 5 volts. I assume it probably does. Is it 8? It's 8. He says, he's winking, it's 8. So it's just determined, right? It's deterministic. We might like to go into the styles. I'll hold down style and go to the blue one. That's the high and low one. And then you'll hear that it mostly is long and then short, and then long and short, and long and short. And Vanta did he added quite a wider variation, I think. So you can, and kind of brought up the lower one. So it's not absolutely strictly 10 volts and then 0 volts. There's a kind of, it can sometimes be in kind of the middle, because you might land in the bottom of one for one and then the top of one for the next. So, you know, hey ho. Then you can loop that, or double tap. I'm waiting for a really strong change there. I don't know how many steps it is. I think it's set to 8. I might come down and change the steps to like 2. So we hear it's really long and really short. So by using a short step count and kind of waiting for the right moment and grabbing that, I can get a really reliably high then low signal. I might also like to do a 3-step on a different style, say like maybe the white one. So I've got a really reliable 3-step sequence. And I want to mention this just because, again, it's that thing that we can feel very clever when we make a really long, complicated 32-step pattern that's adjusting the length of our decay times. But in my experience, like the really short ones tend to sort of hit the hardest. They're the ones that are more obvious when you hear them, you know? So. And I have actually left that on evolve, I notice. So I might want to lock it. Then we've got all these other channels like unused, so let's patch them. So let's use another channel and we'll go into the, turn this up. Now, I don't know enough about we need someone who works for Bifaka to tell me like what's the most satisfying. Oh, that's quite cool. But you also don't really need to know. Just, you're right, the essence of modular is squiggle. Yeah, squiggle, all of them are great.
I mean, you get noises, you get super randoms, and then you get clusters.
Yeah, okay.
So,
Am I using that right? I want to... I'm just kind of changing this until I find it. Oh, that's nice. And then I might loop that. And then I might set that to have like a quite low. And so now I've got two voltages. One is controlling the length of the decay time, and the other is controlling the Y of this. There is also a filter in here with resonance. And it's kind of less obvious. So I was like, man, maybe I could control that as well. But I might like to change. And I might come here and I'm turning up the voltage. There we go. And it's all, I turn this down, I'm turning this up, I'm just trying to find a range that sounds good. And that might be what I leave. I might leave that for like the whole set potentially. Because my main thought here is that you only have two hands and hundreds of controls to mess with. So I'd be trying to find musically nice things that always sound like they're in a sweet spot. Leave that, like, I might say, hey, this, for whatever reason, this is fine. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to just change the patterns. Thank you. Go to the slide menu. And then what I did is I was just turning up the slide value for a little. And then I'm like going into the tick pattern, let's just find something different. Turn that up a little bit. Slide is still on the menu. It doesn't just kick you out of the menu until you push a button. So you can kind of, if for you the slide was the thing you wanted to interact with, then you can just leave it open like this and just know that you can reach out. The other thing is, like, you could use divide. I'm using this clever sort of note patch thing in here, or the note repeat patch, but I also think divider is a fun one that you can come in and manually jam and create. You could actually be doing note repeats, and I do think, like, it's interesting. For me personally, even though it has like these small trimmers, I do think it's quite performable. It's surprising how much you can go into a menu and just like freak the control in real time. But your mileage may vary, it's finger dependent, you know. But of course I would say it's totally fine, but it seems surprisingly fine to me. And then let's double tap. So we just got like a weird all over the place, let's lock it. And then let's just come right down and go 3-step. Because, yeah, short sequences, how are we doing this? Yeah, you hear that this like switchy sequence, it's just always changing, it's always interesting. It's surprising how much you can get away with when things are being controlled for you. And I could add another channel. Am I doing this right? Oh, that's the offset. These aren't CV attenuators, are they, when they go into there? They are attenuators, so we should turn these up, right? No. You do it. Ah, positive and negative, right? Oh, it's offset. Okay. Yeah. That's not the volume up. We could also modulate that. We might like to. I mean, I should probably modulate with something that is also triggered at the same time, but we could just go nuts. Yeah. And then you could leave this on evolve. That's where it's like, oh, that's nice. So like quick lock everything. And then the things that, you know, matter, the melodies are staying as they are. But so the things that we've created nice ranges for, these squidgy, odd noises, are still sat within their ranges. We haven't touched these knobs, so we can just forget about them. And that's kind of how I see it being used. I see that you mostly interact with the buttons during a performance. I don't want to tell you that's how you should do it, but this is just what I was thinking when I thought of, yeah, that'll be fine, that's how I would do it. Because then the idea is you might not even touch the Random8 because you'll be so busy doing everything else. You might, for example, be using a quote-unquote proper sequencer and doing your melodies with that, and just using Random8 to create a variation that keeps your percussion interesting, keeps the volt, you know, the cut-off changing, so you can get busy doing other stuff. I can barely hear that, but techno. Apparently it's good for techno as well. Now I'm like, what mode have I put the arc in? Oh no, I'm not an arc person. I haven't learned this sequence yet. Anyway, it's that sort of thing. It's setting up satisfying ranges for things, giving it some jobs to do. You could control your pitch, and then all you have to do is push buttons to have it make things, have it make the melodies, or keep the pitch information lively. The percussion lively by controlling things like the timbre. And I think this is an example here of how one of the most powerful types of modules to pair it with is digital stuff. Digital modules like Noise Plethora, where you get all of this range from 0 to, you know, a million miles into space through just the turn of one control. Those types of modules are the perfect thing to give this to control. Things like braids and plats and all of these digital modules which have 2 controls or 3 controls, you can feed it to those and take yourself to completely different dimensions in a really quick space of time. Yeah. Makes sense, I hope. Okay. I think that's probably enough. I mean, you know, you should just try, now you have to try it for yourself. And this is just like one of the literal infinite ways that you could use this module. I think the things to say is like pairing it with a VCA is very powerful because you can make everything dynamic. So you can, any modulation, if you let Random8 control the strength of that modulation, then that strength becomes dynamic and loopable, and it becomes its own sort of phrase and all this sort of jazz. So VCAs, you know, they say, there's a famous saying, you can never have too many VCAs, because when you've got control of those VCAs, which it can give you, then sky's the limit. So buy more VCAs.
We have one pending question from the chat, and maybe we can have the last question from the room. So if you have a question for him, this is your chance.
Or if you're not comfortable, come up afterwards. I'm hanging out, so
exactly.
For sure.
See?
Yeah, go on.
What is your preferred use of the Random8 in a live setting?
So at the moment, so this got announced on, it was whenever Superbooth was in May, I think, May the 8th. And that for me was a watershed moment because I'm like, finally, now I can put it in my live case. So at the moment, I have it patched to pitch, and I have it patched to, what we got? Pitch and cut off. But like, for example, one of the really fun things that I've started doing in my case is I have the Erica synth sample drum, which was we were messing with before. And with that module and with other similar sample selection modules, you can use a control voltage to pick the sample. And that means that every time you send it to hit, you get a different sound. And so what I've done is I've curated banks of sounds that like are 30 or 40 kind of vocal noises or hits from 90 sample CDs. So, you know, like, whoa, and you know, all these little things, tons of those, 30 or 40 of them. And then I'm using a channel on Random8 to select which one, and then I'm sending that a trigger to make it heard. And I'm actually running it through a per call. And the reason that I run it through a per call is because the sort of problem with samples is that you don't have very much manipulation once the sample is just playing back, it's a sample. But you can change its volume, and you can change what sample it is, and you can change its decay envelope. And the sample drum does have a software decay envelope built in, but I really like using the per call because it's physical and visual, and I can just look over and I can see that it's short, and I can see there's a little red light that triggers every time these play. And for me, that's a real comfort blanket. So sample selection is such a fun thing because during a set, and my sets are all improvised, I'll have been doing melodies with my one pitch track, and I'm kind of tired of that, and I'm like, oh, we need something new. Then my sort of teddy bear is that I could then go to the sample, and I can pretty much just turn the dial here and get a different selection of samples, or I could double tap and get a random thing, or I could randomize, change the bank, And the point is when I fade that up, suddenly I've got this like, woo, like, woo, and because you can loop it, then you get you get the same thing as if you've gone into Ableton and dragged 4 samples and they play the same way each time, but all you have to do is push one button. And if I want that to change, I can just grab the dial or I can push the button once. So I only have to take one action, and that one action of turning the dial will scale and change all the samples, so then it will be a totally different set of, and it won't change. So for me, it's the value in it is, yeah, sample section is a fun one, but in all of it, it's the fact that it only takes one button to get a change. That's like the sort of best thing for me. But yeah. I mean,
Okay,
yeah.
just to finish, we have like one question for Turbo Tambourine.
Mate, again.
Yeah, so
the
it was,
question.
I guess it was from the very first half, instead of
Yeah.
a question about patching, is still a question about the process, and I guess that this is the $1 million question. I'm gonna read it. After going through the process of collaborating, bringing a module to life, do you find your brain is then thinking about other possible ideas to also pursue?
Yes. Yes, it is. I
Like
have
other modules, ideas?
Yeah, totally. I mean, we were discussing one on the bus on the way over, and it's like, yeah, I have lots of ideas for things, and it's.
We should travel in a bus more
We
often.
we should take buses together more. You never know what's going to happen when you get to your destination, and I definitely have ideas, and it's just, but I definitely have a newfound respect for how hard it is to see ideas through and to bring them to life, and then to be the sort of custodian of them. And for us, where we have the scope to add things as we do here, we've got to do that in a way that is really valuable and doesn't mess up what's good about what's already been done and all this jazz. So yes, but I definitely respect the challenge. It's super hard, and this is not perfect. And I'm also, the best lesson that I've learned is it's okay. It's okay not to be perfect. And we can work with it, and we can listen to what people tell us that they like doing, because that's the most interesting thing. The best thing ever is going to be people coming up with completely crazy, nutty things that I've not considered. And so if you have ideas for Random8, you can find my email address or Bafaco's, just send them in, and we're all ears. And there's totally crazy things that this is possible. Different styles that are brainy and smart and do mad things. I can think of some, but I don't want to say them just to don't want to get anyone's hopes up. You've got to do it in the right way and do it carefully. And as we discovered, we've got to do it in a way that keeps things stable and reliable, because I want people to have these in the cases and play on stage with them. You've got to be able to rely on it. So, yeah. Yes, it's hard, but it's good.
That was
a long
answer.
That's an answer.
Okay, so
an answer.
I think it's enough for today, no?
Yeah, I think so.
that we
Time for a
do
beer.
all deserve a beer.
Yeah, I agree.
It's beer o'clock.
Yeah.
So, Alex, thank you very much for coming all the
Gracias.
way to Barcelona.
Gracias.
Thank you very much to all of you for coming at this time with this weather. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Elevator crew.
Yeah.
You
Gracias,
rock.
Elevator Sound.
Thank you for having us. Thank you for hosting Befaco and Mylar and to be the center of all things happening here. Thank you. So again, hope you enjoyed this evening. Hope you enjoyed the module. Let's
I will
talk
be
a little
around
bit more,
if you wanna
maybe
come
off
and-
stream. Now we can talk about the nice stuff, not to the people in the stream. Now we can talk
The
about
secrets.
exactly.
The
Now
secrets
that we
come
are
out.
not on camera, we can talk about the secrets. Okay, again, thank you very much. Yeah.
And if President Trump did either, whether such abuse of his power is compatible with the office of President of the State. And it terrible is that. Our answer to these questions will affect not only the future of this Vice President appropriate steps to maintain order and ensure the U.S. government action, informing deputies, yes, producer, and the Bidens, informants of on the performance of political favor, on the performance of political favors, on the performance of political favors by the Ukrainian government, favors by the favors. House meeting or U.S. military, President Trump and our elections. They come. By the Ukrainian government. Our answer to these questions will affect not only the future of this presidency, but the future of the presidency itself.
That's a nicer. And you could also split. So you could have yeah.
I see that it's not
You
that
could also,
easy.
yeah, I mean, yeah. A module can be anything, so
I
you
will
could
check,
do
I
that.
will
and
check
then
the video,
Yeah.
so you can discourage me at the end of the video.
I think it's midway through. But remember, you can also, I mentioned VCV Rack. Have you ever tried VCV?
No.
So VCV Rack is free.
You mean the software?
VCV.
Yeah, I have it. I have it. Yeah, that's
So
a good,
that's what I would encourage you to just play your ideas and try them there.
Yeah.
Build a multi-voice and because you can get amazing results and try and see how it feels and see if it feels
and I
worth
think
it.
when I try that, probably will find a point in between. That it will not be what I'm looking for, but something that kind of fits. That is not an 8 voice or something. But I just wanted to know your opinion. Okay.
You need the right eyes.
Look, we'll be in touch. Okay, fine. Killing it. And so what? I can just see the stream on your Instagram. You got your expanded. Fucking better. I'm just waiting for you. Like, oh my God, that's very good. And I see it. Yeah, we gotta be sure. I mean, you need to like put the contact details and everything. But I think it must be for us, you know. Thank you. I got the whole point. It kind of trolled you a little bit, right? I think I'm going to drink me a bit of mate. Yeah, obviously. Just, you know, if you can put the contact details here, please. Oh, well done.
Yeah, I mean the shop area is there, so if you can put there your contact details.
It's taken a while to get an interesting backstory.
Yeah, no, hey, thank you, mate. Appreciate it.
Which size strategy? Large.
Well, that got pretty out of hand. Big patch now.
Huh?
Big patch. Oh, nice.
I was like, oh, that's the case that I have. I was like, yes, cool, respect. I'm not sure whether he's got good taste, I got good taste. But yeah, cool. Well, I've got something to keep me busy tomorrow.
Yeah, good.
But yeah, now I should finish.
Marco is like you were the kid in the classroom, like.
That was from the beginning. No, I was three. We got three. But we didn't do the second class. You're going to explain that first.
It's so easy to not explain.
saw it this week, basically. Yeah, yeah. All right, bro. Catch you in a bit. See you.
Bueno, a ver si recogemos, ¿no? Yo ahora, claro, ahora tengo aquí de que se están mezclando cables. ¡No! ¡Por favor! ¡No! No, por favor, ¿dónde vas? ¿Por qué te vas? Espera, 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 que te doy un beso. Espera. Marco, this green, this
This is not ours.
no,
No.
and this neither.
No.
Vale.
The purple one is ours.
Yeah,
the white
all this
one,
for
yeah.
sure. All this for
See,
sure.
This is
Check.
all not ours.
Yeah, I wasn't. So I
No.
removed the ones I thought that
Perfect.
were not ours.
No,
I
perfect.
wasn't sure about the Hosa ones, but yeah, we do have Hosa cables. So
No, that's it. I think that's it. This is all not.
Yes.
Awesome.
hay una mezcla aquí como de aire reconcentrado, pero de